In the upscale Gainey Ranch neighborhood of Scottsdale, on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona, Jennifer Wilson was preparing to take her son Eric to the hospital in her RAV4 on a scorching Saturday morning in June. The silver 2022 SUV quietly started its engine in front of their elegant single-family home, surrounded by the neighborhood's tree-lined streets. "Eric, how are you feeling?" "I'm okay, Mom. Feeling good today." 8-year-old Eric smiled from the back seat, his emergency inhaler resting on his lap. It had been 5 years since he was diagnosed with severe multiple chemical sensitivity at age 3. Even everyday school supplies and toys that other children used without a second thought required careful consideration for Eric. Jennifer, a top-performing sales agent at a major real estate company, had been juggling her work while managing her son's condition. Wednesdays were particularly challenging, with important client meetings scheduled until evening, requiring careful coordination with her husband Michael to arrange Eric's transportation. As she parked the car in the quiet weekend parking lot at Mayo Clinic, Jennifer reflected on her son's medical history. Weekly checkups. The whole family's meticulous attention to detail. They had carefully selected everything from detergents to air fresheners, creating a safe environment where Eric could live comfortably. Michael, despite his busy schedule as a co-owner of a local construction company, always made time to monitor their son's health. That morning, before heading to work, he had reminded her, "Make sure to pass along my questions to the specialist." Her mild-mannered, family-oriented husband was also devoted to his sister. Sometimes, that devotion became a source of tension that threatened their family's peace. Their combined annual income exceeded $150,000, which helped them manage Eric's expensive medical treatments. Their spacious Gainey Ranch home stood as a testament to their hard work. On weekends, they enjoyed a peaceful life, shopping at Scottsdale Fashion Square or having family dinners at the Cheesecake Factory. However, there was one person who cast a shadow over this tranquil life. Michael's sister, Linda. She had built a career as a research assistant at a chemical plant, but suddenly quit a year ago, declaring she would become a freelance designer. Her monthly income was only around $2,000. Despite this, she continued living in an expensive Phoenix apartment, regularly depending on her brother and sister-in-law to cover her living expenses. During last summer's family vacation to Sedona, Linda had borrowed Jennifer's spare car key, just in case, and never returned it. Despite several requests for its return, she always responded with a vague, "I'll look for it." Just last week, Linda had asked to borrow $4,500, claiming she was 3 months behind on rent. Jennifer had reached her limit with Linda's attitude. "Linda, you need to become independent. We're already struggling with Eric's medical expenses." When Jennifer firmly refused, Linda's expression instantly twisted. There was a look of hatred in her eyes that Jennifer had never seen before. Even Michael, unusually, had lectured his sister. "Linda, you're old enough to work. Think about moving back home or finding a cheaper apartment." These words enraged Linda, who screamed, "Why don't you understand?" before storming out of the house. As the front door slammed shut, Eric pressed himself against his mother's back, trembling slightly. Since then, The family atmosphere had changed completely. Eric began clinging to his mother, saying, "I'm scared of Aunt Linda," while Michael took his sister's side, creating a rift with his wife. Dinner conversations became sparse, and family outings decreased. Though everyone pretended not to notice, the family's balance had already begun to shift dramatically. After finishing the doctor's consultation and returning to the parking lot, Jennifer caught a glimpse of her son in the rearview mirror. No matter what happened, she had to protect this child's smile. This resolve stemmed from a mother's instinct, a desperate wish. One Wednesday in June, at 6 p.m., Jennifer was heading home after finishing negotiations with a major client, her feet heavy with fatigue. The shadows of palm trees lining the upscale neighborhood streets were growing longer. Just as she turned the corner toward home, feeling relieved that the deal had finally closed, Jennifer froze. The garage space where she usually parked her RAV4 was empty. No way. She frantically pulled out her phone and called Michael. "Michael, the car's gone. It might have been stolen." Just as Jennifer's trembling fingers were about to dial emergency services, a familiar silver RAV4 quietly turned onto the street. Behind the wheel was Linda, her face concealed by sunglasses, a black mask, and a large hat. When the car stopped, Linda stepped out casually, carrying several shopping bags. She acted as if she had been using her own car. "Sorry about that, I had an urgent errand. But I filled up the gas tank." Linda's voice was cheerful, but there was something sinister lurking in her expression. "Please make sure to ask permission first next time." Jennifer maintained her composure as she spoke, but her heart was pounding. The spare key that Linda had kept since last year's family vacation, she never imagined she would actually use it. Yes, I understand." Linda responded flippantly and turned on her heel. At that moment, Jennifer didn't miss seeing Linda toss something into the garden bushes, though the twilight made it impossible to identify what it was. She needed to pick up Eric right away. She headed to Mrs. Johnson's house and returned home with Eric. Upon seeing the RAV4 parked in the driveway, Eric's expression darkened. "Mom, there's a weird smell in the car." Those words sent chills down Jennifer's spine. Eric, with his chemical sensitivity, was more perceptive to strange odors than anyone else. Sometimes, this served as a warning of dangerous situations. "It smells like the disinfectant Aunt Linda uses." Eric's voice was trembling. She could see the color draining from her son's face. She quickly reached for his emergency inhaler. Eric's asthma attacks occurred immediately when exposed to chemical substances. The irritating odor lingering in the car was indeed an unusual chemical smell. That night, when Michael returned home, Jennifer explained what had happened. "Michael, Linda took the car without permission. Eric says there's a strange smell." However, Michael's reaction was unexpected. "Are you suspecting Linda again?" "She's my sister." "That's enough. You're not using that car anymore." Her husband unilaterally declared this, prohibiting Jennifer from driving. Even Eric's testimony was dismissed as imagination. That night, Jennifer couldn't sleep. The RAV4 in the parking lot cast an eerie shadow in the moonlight. The strange odor that had lingered in the car. Linda's meaningful smile. And her son's attack. Perhaps it was all a harbinger of something to come. An unfathomable anxiety spread through Jennifer's chest. In the darkness of their bedroom, she felt like she was praying. The next morning, Michael was preparing for work. He picked up the RAV4 keys from the garage, seemingly unconcerned about Jennifer's worries. A heavy atmosphere hung over the breakfast table. "Dad, the car still smells weird," Eric pleaded in a small voice, but Michael ignored his son's words. As Jennifer began to say something, Michael was already heading to the garage. It was 7 a.m., earlier than his usual departure time. The neighborhood was quiet, with few cars on the road. When Michael started the engine, it made an unusual sound. Strange mechanical noises were leaking from the engine compartment. Looking at the dashboard, warning lights began to flash. The check engine light. However, Michael dismissed it as a malfunction. He couldn't imagine the car that had been fine until yesterday suddenly breaking down. He drove toward the Gainey Ranch exit. As he turned a gentle curve, white smoke began rising from the engine compartment. No way. When he pressed the accelerator, a metallic grinding sound echoed from the engine. Then suddenly, all the warning lights on the instrument panel lit up simultaneously. At that moment, flames burst from the engine compartment with a thunderous roar. "Oh God!" Sweat beaded on his hands gripping the steering wheel. Michael desperately hit the brakes, but the braking system had already failed. A fuel system leak was rapidly filling the car with black smoke. An explosion ripped through the quiet neighborhood. Neighbors rushed out of their houses in their pajamas. The car interior was quickly engulfed in flames, filling with unbearable heat and smoke. He grabbed the door handle, but the heat-warped mechanism wouldn't move. "Help!" His cry was lost in the black smoke. Just then, a delivery van happened to pass by. The driver, Tom Martin, immediately hit the brakes when he saw the burning car. Without hesitation, he approached the blazing vehicle, fire extinguisher in hand. However, the flames had already grown too large to control. Tom grabbed tools from his van and forcefully broke the rear window. Through the billowing black smoke, he could see Michael, who was beginning to lose consciousness. "Hang on." Tom thrust his upper body into the flame-filled car, trying to pull Michael out. That's when the second explosion occurred. The blast threw both men several meters. Michael's clothes continued to burn, and he had suffered severe burns across his body. In the distance, sirens were wailing. Fire trucks and ambulances. "Mom, Dad's car." Eric's trembling voice. The sky visible through the window had an unnatural redness. Then her phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson. This is the Scottsdale Memorial Hospital Emergency Department. Your husband." The voice on the phone grew distant. Jennifer recalled the dream she had last night. In her dream, she had seen large flames. When the fire trucks arrived on scene, the RAV4 was completely engulfed in flames. The fire had spread to nearby trees, turning the green residential street into a scene from hell. Paramedics loaded the unconscious Michael into an ambulance. Severe burns covered more than 40% of his body. With likely airway burns as well, his life was in critical danger. Jennifer, who had rushed to the scene, nearly collapsed at the sight of her husband's transformed appearance. Eric gripped his mother's hand tightly and asked in a trembling voice, "Dad will be okay, right?" No one could immediately answer that question. The ambulance sirens wailed again as they headed to the hospital with Michael. By the time the sun had fully risen, all that remained at the scene was the blackened wreckage of the RAV4 and a lingering strange odor. That smell was somehow similar to the strange odor Eric had noticed the night before. In the car heading to the hospital, Jennifer remembered Linda's eerie smile from yesterday. At the Scottsdale Police Department's Major Incident Division, Detective Jim Connors studied photos of the RAV4 fire. 48 hours had passed since the accident. This is no ordinary accident. The veteran detective's intuition, backed by 20 years of experience, told him so. The initial report from the scene investigation team had noted several suspicious points. First, the residue collected from the engine compartment. Traces of chemicals not typically found in vehicle fires had been detected. The components suggested an industrial-strength acid. Forensics officer Sarah Chen entered with documents. The surveillance camera analysis is complete. Security camera footage from throughout the residential area. The day before the accident, footage captured a silver RAV4 heading toward the industrial district. The driver was a woman in a black mask and hat. We also checked nearby convenience store security cameras. The footage was clear. 3:15 p.m. the day before the accident. A masked woman purchasing something at an industrial supply store. The register records showed a purchase of industrial-strength acid. The purchaser's name is Linda Wilson, the victim's sister. Just then, a report came in from the hospital. Michael Wilson had temporarily regained consciousness. Detective Connors immediately headed to the hospital. In the ICU private room, Michael, his body completely wrapped in bandages, was barely able to speak. "My sister." His voice was filled with anguish at accepting an unbelievable truth. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Eric had been called to the police station for questioning. A female detective carefully took Eric's statement. "Eric, can you tell me more about the smell in the car?" Eric took a deep breath and began speaking slowly. "It smelled like the disinfectant Aunt Linda used. I'm sensitive to chemicals, so I noticed right away." The medical specialist corroborated Eric's testimony. His multiple chemical sensitivity was medically documented, and past medical records showed he was particularly sensitive to strong acidic substances. The investigation progressed rapidly. Security camera footage from the local industrial supply store. Linda's car's GPS records. And the decisive evidence found in bushes near the accident scene. An empty industrial acid container and used protective gloves. Fingerprints on the gloves matched Linda's. Chemical analysis showed the residue in the container matched the acid detected in the engine compartment. Confirm the suspect's whereabouts. Detective Connor's order set the investigation team in motion. Linda's apartment was empty. However, traces of her actions were found one after another. Computer search history included keywords like vehicle fire and engine destruction methods. Smartphone GPS data showed she had visited the industrial district the day before the accident. The clincher was the delivery driver's dash cam. Tom Martin's vehicle was equipped with high-performance recording equipment. The footage clearly recorded liquid leaking from under the vehicle just before the accident. On the third night, Linda was apprehended at Phoenix Airport. She was attempting to flee to Canada when airport staff alerted police. In the interrogation room, Linda remained eerily calm. "I have my reasons." She began speaking dispassionately about her hatred for her sister-in-law who had ruined her life, betrayal by her brother, and above all, her destructive impulse toward their perfect family. Faced with the evidence, Linda admitted everything. On Wednesday afternoon, while Jennifer was away, she had used the car without permission. She had injected acid into the engine compartment and destroyed the timing control device. She even admitted to attempting to destroy evidence afterward. "I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted to destroy that happy family." Her words sent chills through the interrogators. The prosecution immediately decided to charge her with attempted murder. Additional charges included breaking and entering, property damage, and destruction of evidence. At the hospital, Michael's condition was gradually stabilizing. While his burns would require long-term hospitalization, he was beginning to move past the critical stage. He seemed unable to accept the reality of the situation. Jennifer sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand, quietly accepting all the truth. Eric slept beside his father, his expression peaceful for the first time in a while. 1 week after the incident. At the Scottsdale Police Department press conference, Detective Connors explained the full details to the press. "This is an unforgivable crime that trampled on family trust." As camera flashes went off, the detective continued. "While respecting the privacy of the victim and his family, we refrain from sharing certain details, but we have resolved this case based on solid evidence." Outside the conference room, the strong early summer sun beat down. It seemed to herald the arrival of a new season in this city. However, the impact of this incident would leave deep scars on those involved. Especially for the brother who had continued to believe in his sister, the wounds in his heart would take longer to heal than his burns. Now that the truth was revealed, all that remained was the unanswerable question of why. 3 months after the accident. After a long hospital stay, Michael was finally approaching his discharge date. "Are you sure it's okay to leave the hospital now?" Jennifer worriedly peered at her husband's face. His once handsome features were gone, and doctors had said the burn scars from his right cheek to neck would never fully heal. "I'm fine now." Michael's voice was a bit raspier than before. However, his eyes showed strong determination. After rigorous rehabilitation with physical therapists, he could already manage most basic daily activities. "Dad, let's go to our new house soon." Eric stayed close to his father's wheelchair. After the accident, the Wilsons had decided to let go of their Gainey Ranch home, which held too many memories. They had purchased a new home in the more secluded Cave Creek area north of Scottsdale. The accident's impact on Eric's health had manifested in unexpected ways. He had actually improved. Having overcome such a nightmare experience, his mental strength had definitely increased. His asthma attacks were gradually becoming less frequent. The new house was specially designed with Eric's chemical sensitivity in mind. It was equipped with an air purification system, and all building materials were selected for their low reactivity. The spacious yard included room for the treehouse Eric had been dreaming of. A new car had already been delivered. This time they chose the latest model from a Scandinavian manufacturer known for its safety features. Eric smiled, saying, "This car doesn't have any strange smells." The support from the local community was heartening. People in the neighborhood who had heard about the accident brought meals and helped with Eric's transportation. The church community also warmly watched over their new life. However, not all wounds had healed. In the courthouse, the day of Linda's sentencing, Jennifer and Michael delivered their victim impact statements, speaking about their destroyed family bonds. "My sister tried to take everything from us." Michael's voice trembled. "But there's one thing she couldn't take: our bond." In court, Linda showed no signs of remorse until the end. "What I did was resistance against an unfair world." Her final statement was filled with twisted righteousness. The judge, wearing a stern expression, handed down a 20-year prison sentence. During his final visit with his sister, Michael left just one word: "Goodbye." It was a brother's words of farewell. Linda's life in prison was a battle with loneliness. Other inmates wouldn't accept someone who had endangered her own family. No one visited her, and her mental state gradually deteriorated. She wrote several letters of apology to her family, but they were all returned as undeliverable. The Wilsons had made the decision to completely cut ties with the past. One evening, as their new life was settling into a rhythm, Michael was playing catch with Eric in the backyard. Watching them, tears of happiness glistened in Jennifer's eyes. "Mom, Dad's throws are stronger than before." Eric's voice rang out in the garden. Michael smiled gently at his son. The burn scars were still there, certainly. But now, they had become proof of the trials they had overcome. "Let's all get dinner ready." Jennifer's voice calling to them melted into the evening air. The aroma of dinner wafted from the kitchen. A new day was beginning in their new home. It was a sure step forward, leaving behind the dark past and moving toward a hope-filled future. This incident had taken much from them. But it had also taught them something important. Family bonds are sometimes tested. But when you overcome those tests, those bonds become stronger and deeper. The Wilson family's story wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. In the gentle twilight, their smiles shone softly.